On this week's show, discussing the importance of leadership with Nicole Sanchez from CW Driver Companies. In this week's news, positive momentum, more ChatGPT, IPD, and more. All right, we are back, and I have new people with me today. But Jacob, how are you, my friend? How you doing?
Doing good. You know, we made it past Groundhog's Day. I think we can officially say 23 is officially started now. So
I don't know. I mean, we're recording this a little early, but there is a cold wave going across the country. So people are freezing right now. I don't think they care what Puxatawny Phil had to say. I think they just know it is cold.
Yeah, my friends down in Texas right now, they're surviving on milk sandwiches. So we'll see how they do.
I actually was on a call with a guy down there, and the coat he had on, I was like, I could wear that here. Like, you're in Texas, man. It can't be that cold. Now, we have a new guest with us today. Obviously, we do that all the time. However, Jacob, you brought Nicole here, and I am really excited and grateful that you brought Nicole over. We've had already a bunch of things in common. So, Nicole, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. So glad to be here. And, you know, I woke up this morning and it's 48 degrees in California. So it is cold everywhere.
Where's your puffy and your beanie cap, right? Don't you? I mean, we can see the air behind you. You got that up to like 80. Is it comfortable?
Yeah, can you see it? Yeah. No, so the parka it's in my car. You know, I put it on once I step outside. You know, I try not to let everybody here see me in it. But yep, I've got it.
The way we do. Yeah, I walk every morning, and I'm always talking to one of my coworkers, and I'm always like, oh, yeah, it's only 9 today. And she's like, and you're outside? Like, yes, it's a dry cold, though. It's a dry cold. Don't you worry.
Right. Like so dry heat in Arizona.
That's right. Well, we're going to get back to Nicole here. We're going to have a fantastic show. Before we do, let's pause for the cause.
It's important everyone supports a culture of well-being in the field and is equipped with the tools to help prevent suicide in construction. Procore Safety Qualified courses were built in partnership with our customers, elevating enhancements to their standard OSHA training. And the Bringing the Right Mindset series equips individuals and leaders alike with the skills necessary to really build resilient teams. We've made these 3 courses available for free and on demand, and they're offered both in English as well as Spanish, and they are CEU certifiable. Procore.com/certified-qualified is where we host our Procore's learning portal, and anyone can use their Procore credentials or create a free account to get started.
I'm here with Robert Shear, VP of Strategy and Business Development for OpenSpace. Robert, tell us a little bit about what is OpenSpace.
OpenSpace is a 360 job site capture, review, and tracking tool. Think of it as an up-to-the-minute Google Street View of your project that people can view anywhere, anytime. Some people also refer to it as like total project recall, right? So what if you could have a photographic memory for all your projects for all time in case something came up in the future? So that's really what it is. How do you use it? Let me grab my camera. You simply just attach a 360 camera to your hard hat, open our app on your phone, open the floor plan, tap where you are and walk. We take care of the rest. So as you walk, we take 2 360 images per second. You come back, upload them to the cloud, and we process that all together, stitch them together, pin all those images to your plans, and deliver it back to you as a navigable 360 environment for everyone to use and share. And typically we deliver it back to you in like 30 to 60 minutes.
And we're back. All right, Nicole. So normally this is a construction tech show, but we're really trying to branch out. We're really trying to talk about kind of the progression, and you bring a new perspective. So tell everybody listening in a little bit more about you, a little bit about your background, and then we'll jump into how you got into this crazy world of construction.
Yeah, so I'm Nicole Sanchez. I am out in Southern California. And as Jeff mentioned, I was connected with Jacob. It's probably been about a month. I think we had some things in common on LinkedIn, that powerhouse of a, thing that we all use. Yeah. Connected, we were able just to kind of chat a little bit about some commonalities that we have. I'm obviously in construction. I work with CW Driver Companies. We are a general contractor here in Southern California. We've got, a large company called CW Driver that is all of our large new build. They focus on large new builds. And then we have Driver SPG, which is smaller tenant improvements, renovations. So I work directly with Driver SPG in terms of leading their office in their pursuits. So that's what I do in the daytime. I'm a mom. I've got a 8-year-old, and she's in soccer. So I'm at a lot of soccer games with the same parka that I was just telling you about.
Do they even let them play soccer at this weather?
Yeah.
All right.
They're fine. And, they're out there in shorts and T-shirts while the rest of us, the parents are sitting on the sidelines with our hats and our boots and our, gigantic coats on. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I got into construction. I was actually with Wells Fargo for 17 years. I was managing a couple of sales teams there, and resigned back in 2013. I had just kind of a pause and didn't really know what I was going to do next. I was just like, I don't know, I'll just kind of see what happens. I was introduced to a gentleman that owned a company called Corey Engineering, and they were looking for somebody for business development. And we had spoke, and I said, listen, I know nothing about construction, not a thing. I know that it's happening around me. That's about all I know. And he said, not worried about it. You know people, so why don't you just come on in, we'll give it a shot. So I started doing business development for Corey Engineering. Then I led that team as vice president of sales, and then transitioned into vice president of operations. And then I left about a year ago. So I came to CW Driver, entered the contractor world, which has been a great growth challenge for me, just being on a different side. I was a sub before, now just being in the contractor world. So it was kind of just a leap. That's how I got into construction. And I think just like any other industry, I find that, the topic that I'm most passionate about, which is leadership, it doesn't really matter, what industry I'm in. People are people and leadership is leadership. I just happen to be able to use such a great platform to be able to communicate and have the connections that I've built, just like you, Jacob, right? Like we connected on LinkedIn, like I had mentioned. And that was through some of my philosophy sharing in terms of leadership. And I think that just the messaging behind that allows me to be able to connect with people in and out of construction. Either way, it doesn't really matter.
I'm interested in what are some of the universal leadership traits, leadership lessons that you bring with you, because you've brought them across, and you're our podcaster as well. You have your own show. You've written a book. So like you got a wealth of info going out there. What are some of those commonalities that if the group that's listening in is like, why should I continue to listen to this? What are some of the nuggets I'm going to get from it?
Yeah, well, I think it's a great question. First of all, leadership is the foundation to everything, not just a thriving company, but leadership in our homes as well, right? Like it doesn't have to be a huge corporate America to be talking about leadership. Leadership is a way of being, and it's truly a way of life. So I think some of the things that I have seen through my experience from having mentors and leaders in my life, and also being a leader, is like those universal things are compassion and humility and vulnerability and authenticity and transparency and really showing up as the role model, right? Like really embodying all of the things that you say that you want to be as a leader and creating habits so that you are that person as a leader. And then all of that transfers into whoever you're in front of. It could be your team. It could be an entire company. It could be, like I said, just in your home. But I feel like those are the core things that truly are transferable, with any leader. That's what makes them a leader.
It's a new experience though, right? For you to draw a comparison to being a leader in your home and then being a leader in business, we used to draw a distinct line between those. In fact, I mean, I remember this growing up with my dad. I remember it in my early days of my career. Like, this is not your home. These are not those things. This is business. Business is business. It's, what was the old, business isn't personal. Business is business. Those types of things. But You're talking about compassion, humility, empathy. Those are traits that are changing. Why are those important and why are they coming together now? Why can we lead our homes the way we can lead in our businesses?
Yeah, I mean, you do hear, I still hear too, business is business and it's not personal, but human beings are personal. And as leaders, our job is to raise other human beings up, right? Like someday somebody is going to take my position. Someday somebody's going to take the president of this company's position. And it's all of those key people in place to make sure that you're raising people up to be ready for that position. And to be able to do that, you've got to be able to touch people in a different way. I think, old school leadership is a lot about like the hammer, right? Like do as I say. And it's kind of like the hammer type of leadership. And maybe that is still out there and it still works for some other companies. But human beings want to feel like they belong somewhere. And you guys are both employees of companies. How do you feel like you belong somewhere?
Compassion.
It's compassion and it's caring, right? It's that that the people that you work with every day truly care. And I think that there's a direct correlation between happy team members and happy clients, right? If I am leading this team and nobody likes my leadership because it's the hammer type of leadership, or I'm brash, or they know that I just don't really care. I'm just here to get the job done or hit the numbers or whatever the case may be. If I've got a team that I'm leading and they're all, mad that they're at work every single day, that is going to be a direct correlation to how my customers' experience is. So leading with compassion, leading with truly caring about the people. I've only been with CW Driver for about a year, but I can tell you out of any company that I've worked for, and it hasn't been many because I was with Wells Fargo for 17 years. I was with Corey for 9, had some jobs, after school and stuff like that. But out of any company that I have worked for, I know without a doubt that there is care and compassion for every single team member that's here. And knowing that and being able to come into an environment like that allows everybody to be who they're supposed to be inside of their position, which is, again, a direct correlation to how they perform and then our client's experience.
Yeah, and I'm gonna roll back a little bit because the whole leading the family and leading the business thing it actually hits pretty well for me. My dad was a great role model in that sense, and especially because his dad led the family the same way he led his business with the hammer, and it was like they actually ran a family business, so everything just mixed. And so when he raised me, he did it very compassionately. It was not like this. It was very open, and I think that really helped me get into this. So I think even more so now as we're getting into this generation of leaders that can do that, I see that actually, going on an exponential growth path of, hey, these people are understanding, the younger individuals are understanding that they can be compassionate, go with it too. And I've seen companies actually just grow very quickly because of that type of leadership, and then grow their individuals inside of it, which then turns into your happy clients because of happy employees. I think it's absolutely incredible. I know I've seen Jeff write down like 6 different quotes so far, but this is great. I mean, I love it. I think within construction, how do you ask them to start changing that? And this is perfect for you being inside of a contractor. Like, yeah. Is this a discussion you're having inside of your company with other individuals? Yeah.
Well, before I answer that question, just a thought came to my head. Leadership, like I had mentioned, like it's not about a position. It's literally about it's your way of being, right? It's like who I am at the core of my being, and then allowing that person to come out into the workplace, right? Like I'm not a different person at home than I am in the office. Yes, there might be, the conversations might sound a little bit different, and I might not be quite as goofy as I am at home, and right, but who I am at the core is truly a leader. And to be able to, like I had mentioned before, show up just in an authentic way, because people know when you're full of it, right? They know when you're trying to be somebody that you're really not, and they can smell it from a million miles away. So just being that, it's just it's a way of being. It's not like because you're a vice president of whatever, that doesn't make you a leader. Who you are as a person and how you treat other people is what makes you the leader. Back to your question, which was how do you do that, right? Like, how do you bring that type of philosophy? It's all about having the right people on your team. You guys both know. I mean, you know that if you don't have people that see things in alignment with how you see things, it's probably not going to work out. Right. Like, I've been in a situation before where, I was vice president of ops at my former company, and we had a vice president of sales, and we had very different leadership types. I lead with compassion, and I lead with kindness, and I lead with understanding, and I lead with very much of the human being in front of me. I have intuition and I follow it, and I just know how to be with people. Of course, I know how to have very difficult conversations, but I feel like that hammer type of leadership is more about ego and pride and being right. And I know that in leadership, you got to check that at the door. Like, that doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore. So I think, first of all, to answer your question, being the role model of what leadership can look like to build thriving cultures, which builds a thriving business, right? So truly being that role model so that the other leaders around you are able to see what it actually looks like and what it actually feels like to be led in that way. And then just constant coaching. Like, if you find somebody that's being a jerk, right? Having those coaching moments and just saying, how do you think that's really going to work out for us in the end? Because now that person's probably pissed off, and the next person they talk to, they're going to get the wrath of what and it's just going to kind of go down the line. It spreads into the team. It spreads over to the client. So just being that role model and letting people know, especially I'm in a man's world, right? That's the reality of it. I work with a bunch of guys, and not always, sometimes. The president here is an incredibly compassionate person, so he's out of this. But sometimes men tend to not be quite as emotional as women, right? Like, we can be emotional, not in a weak way, but emotional in a way of that we have emotional intelligence and we know how to be with people in a different way, right? So teaching people and just letting people know that it's okay to lead in a different way. It's not about do as I say type of a thing. It's collaboration. It's getting ideas. It's hearing people's voices, letting them know that they have a voice within the company, things like that. I don't know if that answered your question, but I feel like it
absolutely.
did.
Yeah, I mean, Nicole, you hit on a couple of things, and I think for people listening in, the first one, I'm always looking for the goal. Like, why should they listen to Nicole? What's the goal of what we're listening to today? And I think about that: happy team members equals happy clients.
1,000.
It's like Southwest. I mean, I know they've got a lot of bad press right now, but ultimately, most of what they do is all about supporting their employees and creating happy employees, because that translates to happy customers. Like, it's just the way they do it. It's why they don't make them do the announcements straight up. Allows them to inject a bit of their personality into that. And that makes that landing a little less tense for somebody who might be tense. And that makes the experience better. So I think that's key. The other one you hit on that I absolutely love is there is this idea in our business, especially in construction, that you show up and someone anoints you a leader. Mm-hmm. And that is just not how it works. Mm-hmm. That, in fact, most of those people that are anointed leaders half the time are promoted to the point where they're actually beyond their skill sets. Their skill sets are more in constructing, more in understanding sequencing or other things we do, not in understanding the humans and not understanding how to get the most out of people. And I love that you said it was a decision. Like, it is a decision that you make to lead, and to lead in the way that you lead every day, and every day that you show up. The thing that I'd love to catch on there is, you said this a couple times, is your authentic self. And I honestly think we are going through a transition right now where it is now more than ever okay to show up as that authentic self to work. But I think it's creating challenges for people in understanding what's your truly authentic self. And you even said this, like, I'm a bit goofier at home, right? But you're not betraying who you are when you come to work. I guarantee you, and we had this a little bit in the pre-call, like, your goofiness shows up.
Yeah,
Like,
it does. And I'm good with it. Like, I'm totally cool with it because it's just who I am. And we laugh. And without laughter.
Absolutely.
So how do you articulate to people or communicate to people, like, this is what your authentic self looks like, and I don't want you to stifle it, but it's also not a full representation of who you are at home either, right? Like, it is some sort of, it's still authentic. Maybe I'm asking a question that can't even be answered, but talk about it a little bit for me.
Yeah. So really quickly, you had said that somebody comes in and anoints you as a leader. And I'm just going to say that I think people get appointed as a leader. That does not mean that they have the anointing of leadership.
Yeah.
Right? Do you hear the distinction?
Yep.
Like, I can roll in CW driver and be appointed director of project development, but I could have lousy leadership skills, and I do not have the anointing to be able to lead the team, right?
Yes.
So that's that.
Absolutely.
And then secondly, the how do you get people to be their authentic selves, right? Well, first of all, that's their decision. Second of all, I can create an environment where you can feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to know that it's okay to show up here as you are. And you know what is so beautiful about when people are in a space where they can show up as they are, that's where the magic starts to happen, right? Because they're not holding back. I'll share a personal experience that I recently had here at CW Driver, and there's no shame. I've only been here for a year, right? So all of these people are new to me. I'm coming in here trying to figure out, how do they all operate? Can I cry in this space? Like, what's happening at CW Driver? Like, just getting comfortable with everything. And I found myself throughout the last year kind of holding back who I was, because I wasn't quite comfortable with my steps yet. I was like, I don't know, like, is it okay to really say how I feel? And I had a conversation with the president of the company and vice president of the company, and we were just able to kind of let it all out on the table and just talk about some things that were really vulnerable. Like, I felt vulnerable in the workplace for the first time in a really long time, but it felt amazing because I was able to just express who I was, and it actually launched me into, like, who I know that I really am, right? Before I came to CW Driver, I was crazy all over social media. And I've been using the excuse to say, I don't know where my place is yet because I don't quite feel comfortable. But I'm back, like, full throttle, simply because the leadership here allowed me to have that conversation, to be vulnerable, and they were authentic with me and vulnerable with me. So I think that, to answer your question, Jeff, the more conversations that we can have with our people that create a space for them to feel comfortable, to be vulnerable, to feel authentic, to be goofy, to even maybe be pissed off sometimes, right? It's not always, it's not like rainbows and butterflies all of the time. Like, it's okay to get real with how we feel about things, and then onward and upward, right? On to the next thing, let's go get it type of a thing. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. And I love it. I think one of the things about the authenticity is, if you can show that you can be successful and still be authentic, I think other people pick up on it real quick. We completed this project. We killed it. We made our money, but we did it being ourselves. And you didn't have to be that professional. My tie's up tight. I'm doing this every single day. We were having fun. We were authentic. And then I think it kind of clicks to them too that, oh, I can come in here and roll into that. I don't have to fit into those, previous stereotypes or roles that were defined 60 years ago of a project engineer does this. I think that really helps. And we had the conversation about all this, and I told you everything about my boss, Danielle. And it is absolutely incredible because as a CEO, she makes everybody in the whole room feel awkward at points because she is so authentic and goofy and having fun and just going, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. And I think it trickles down all the way through. It's just, I don't know. I love that whole, it's gotta be, because I think we all have it. And I think there's a lot of stuff, especially as I was growing up and coming through the industry of, well, the only way to be successful is to have your head down and work hard and get that project done. And it's like, no, actually, I actually use my goofiness now as my sales tool. And it's fun. I love it. I mean, Jeff knows everywhere I go is we're going to have fun. We're going to have a good time. But that's who I am. But also, I got a job that I love doing. So it's amazing.
Well, I think it's simple in my head. Leadership it's just about building relationships, and it's about strengthening the relationship every time you get to have an encounter with a team member. It's, having those moments of, just like you said, to be goofy, to just be who I am, and allow them that space because they're here. This is where we spend most of our time. So it all just goes back to the same conversation. However the team members feel, that is a direct correlation of what our clients are going to feel. So, it's just relationship.
Yeah.
And by the way, Danielle is on my podcast in a couple of weeks. She's phenomenal. I had a conversation with her, and I adore her. And I don't even know her that well yet, but she's a humble leader, and I admire her.
It's crazy because it is finally, I've never really cared much of what other people thought of me or how I've always tried to be myself, but it is like the first time that it's kind of accepted in the whole office and the whole company's thinking the same way. And it's just changed everything for me. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
She's allowed Jacob to grab his inner Tommy boy. That's every time I think about it, I'm like, hey, yeah, I had that pizza in the back of the car, man. So you're able to get her to turn that fryer on and bring them wings back out, weren't you?
The little wee.
Yep.
Oh my. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Oh
see,
my goodness.
That is exactly it. She's my David Spade.
Well, and it does. It brings out our true, authentic self. But Nicole, you hit on something that I want to kind of come back to because there's 2 points that I want to come back to with you. Is it isn't all. So we've talked about being goofy and bringing that authentic self, but there is some real strife, some real hard things, some real frustrations that have to come out, that have to be discussed. Those are those tougher discussions. And just because we're being goofy and bringing those things, that we don't shy away from those. You don't shy away from those. So what are some of the techniques or tips you can give folks on teasing out and having those difficult conversations, getting through them? Because a lot of them, and I'll go to myself here, like it took me forever and it's still struggle to truly have what are called difficult conversations and get it out. And what I find consistently is once I do it, I feel so much better afterwards. And I feel like what you said, we move on. But what are some of the ways that you can teach or have taught people to learn those things and have those difficult conversations that isn't all sunshine and rainbows?
Yeah, when you have to tell somebody their baby's ugly, those type of conversations. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an area that it's tough because what it comes down to, and this is actually a conversation that I had with somebody, a CEO of a company not that long ago, and it's one of their most challenging things is to be able to have these conversations, but really knowing who you are as a leader and being confident in who you are as a leader and knowing where that conversation is coming from. Making sure that the conversation is coming from a place of, that this person, let's just say it's a performance. Let's just say it's about performance, right? We'll use it as an example. That the conversation is not coming from a place of ego and pride, which we just spoke about a little bit ago. It's not about me being right in the situation. It's about me truly caring about you as a team member or a coworker or whatever it might be, and having the conversation come from that place. Because when the conversation is coming from I want to make sure that we're doing things to serve you the best way that we can serve you, it's not that scary of a conversation, because it's about how do we improve the person in front of us. And it's not so much about, I have to go be the bad guy. Sometimes we do have to be the bad guy in leadership, right? But feeling confident in who you are as a leader, and knowing that conversation that you're about to have is going to stretch that person into the place that that they're supposed to be in. One of the things in leadership that I learned years ago is that you hold people in the space that you see them, not necessarily where they might be today, right? So for instance, if I know that somebody's a freaking rock star and maybe they haven't figured it all out yet, I still hold them in the place that I know that they're going to, not in anything less. It's just about holding them in a space and letting them know you're going to stretch them so hard because you know what they have inside of them. So when you can position the conversation, not so much about like, this is gonna be a really crappy conversation. It might be a crappy conversation, but I can tell you what, when you walk out of here, we're both gonna feel better because you're gonna be very clear on what needs to be next for yourself. And I'm gonna feel better because we finally got it out of the way, right? But it's not, I think those tough conversations, I think we give them a little bit more credit than they deserve. I think that's what coaching is in leadership is about, is being able to stretch people. Like sometimes I can't see things because in myself because I'm in it, right? Like you're Jeff and you're Jacob. So sometimes you can't see the things that other people can see. You don't see yourself the same way that I see you. So it is my role in my job to be able to kind of give you a check and say, hey, this is how I think you're showing up. And this is what I know that you're capable of. And feeling comfortable. And again, it just goes back to the conversation that we had earlier about if you're building the right relationship with your team members, those conversations won't be that hard because first of all, it's not going to be a surprise. And second of all, they know what the expectation is. And you've already built that type of relationship that you're comfortable sharing the feedback. That's all it is. It's just feedback. And then it's up to you to do what you're going to do with it, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And by not sharing that feedback, you actually hold people back over time, which is what I think we figure out.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the book Radical Candor, Kim Scott, and she talks about that. Like she had an experience in her life where, they really liked this person and she had this person working for her for this long period of time and he never got it done right and he never did the job right and she never told him and they always made up for him. And then one day she let him go. And in the process, she told him that all along that's what's been going on. And he's like, why didn't you respect me enough to tell me?
Yeah.
So that I can reach my true potential. And what you don't understand is exactly that. Jacob can't know what Jacob is from a 360 because he's Jacob, right? He's at the center of himself. We all have blind spots. We need people to grow us. And to make us and if you've reached that vulnerability point, right, and that true candor between you, then it is just incremental trust and growth and, hey, this is improvement. And I see you as a rock star and you've got to climb the steps to get to the rock star. So here's things you've got to do.
And here, let me help you, right? Like it's a let's go together type of a thing. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that rising tide lifts the whole group, right? It lifts everybody. So if they understand that. The other one, I'm going to go all the way back to appointing and anointing leaders because I'm going to rethink, and this is my Adam Grant in me, I'm going to rethink my own position here and restate this because you did reframe it, by the way, Nicole, and I appreciate that because I'm going to switch up the way I did that. But the other thing that we do poorly in this industry, and I think others, right? I've been in a few different industries over time, and I think we always do this. We promote people to the point where they're necessarily beyond their skill set, but I'm going to rethink that it's on us. how do you train people to be leaders? How do you take those people and help stretch them, and help them achieve that leadership goal as you promote them, so that you don't actually create the self-fulfilling prophecy I just said would happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just going to go back to one of the things that I just had talked about, which is being that role model. Like, that's how people learn what it's supposed to look like, right? Like, if I say to myself, I want to show up as this kind of leader, right? Like, I want to show up as a committed, dedicated, trustworthy, authentic, vulnerable, you name it, all the stuff that we spoke about, leader. I've got to create habits that allow me to be who that leader is, so that I'm actually stepping into that. So it's the same thing. You have those conversations. First of all, you be it. You be the leader that you want others to basically rinse and repeat, right? Like, you just be the role model, and you stretch them along the way, and you show them the habits that support them in getting there. So if you're highly unorganized and you want to be an organized leader, you do stuff that helps you be organized, right? You hang out with people that help you, right? You hang out with
I'm unorganized, so
you hang out with the people that you want to be like. I don't know if you guys, there's a guy on LinkedIn, Jacob. Do you follow Jacob Brown?
Yes, I've seen him. I don't pay attention to him too much.
So he posted something a couple weeks ago that just landed with me, because it was something like this. This isn't verbatim, but it was basically like, if you want to do something, hang out with the people that are already doing it. Mm-hmm. Right? Same thing. If I want to be a leader, such as, our president here, then I hang out with him and I follow his lead, and I do the things that he has embodied through the 35 years of his career, and I do those things. So same thing. Leadership is about, first of all, establishing who you want to be as a leader, and then creating those habits that allow you to be that person. And if one of those things is to find somebody to latch onto and just rinse and repeat the things that they do as a leader, and then somehow you Rubik's Cube that to be your own version of that type of leader, then do that. But role model is, I think, one of the best ways to be able to teach people how to be that type of leader, or the type of leader that you're looking for. I think that sometimes people just don't have that anointing that we talked about, right? Like, sometimes people are rock stars and they can perform the lights out, but sometimes they just don't have the anointing to be a leader. And sometimes those things just can't be taught, right? Like, when you see people and you're like, they've got that thing, he's got that thing about him. That thing is just, it's an anointing. And sometimes you can't teach that. Like, I can't teach people to have the type of compassion that I have for people. I can't. I have it. I was born with it. I love everybody that I encounter. I want to wrap my arms around everybody. I just love people. I might not be able to teach that to you, Jeff, if you don't have it, right?
Nope.
So there's got to be a will, and then there's got to be a role model, and that's it. You lead. You take the lead, and you show people how to lead.
So I had a secondary reason in bringing you on to this too as well. I grew up pretty much a lot through listening to this podcast in my career, and everybody that hosted it before and everything, and basically learned so much about my tech and how I became who I am in the industry. And what I wanted to do is really kind of start doing the same thing to younger generations, but also start giving them more insight into stuff like leadership. So using this as a channel to give them more information. And so if you were somebody that was fairly young in your career and you're pretty low in the company, if you don't have good leaders like directly surrounding you, what would you suggest doing to try and find those? Or because your president's a great leader, but a lot of people can't just go start spending hours a day with their president.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have the time for me to spend like that either. But
right.
your question is how do they find those types of leaders to latch
Yep.
onto and learn from? You know what? I've never met John Maxwell in my life, but when I was, I think I was 19, I read his first leadership book that I read. It wasn't his first leadership book, but it was called The Difference Maker. And I don't know if you guys have read that book. I think it was in the late, maybe, I don't know. I have no idea when it was. I don't know. But that turned me on to listening to his philosophy on leadership. We live in a world where your cell phone can teach you pretty much, that's my daughter, by the way. Your cell phone can link you to just about anything. I listen to podcast after podcast, keynote speaking after keynote speaking, sermons. I mean, I listen to all types of things to be able to absorb the type of leader that I want to be. So it might not be somebody that's, you're the president of your company, or it might not be somebody that you just have that reach to, but we live in a world that you're able to find a leadership or leadership philosophy at your fingertips in a heartbeat to be able to dial into and see if those philosophies work for who you want to be as a leader. So it doesn't always have to be like, well, the leadership of my company stinks. I don't want to be like them. Who else can I find? Find a mentor. Find somebody that you do want to be like. If there's somebody in a different company, if your uncle or your aunt is a rock star leader and they're doing the thing, go latch onto them. There's mentorship programs all over the place that you can find leaders to latch onto, but I'll never forget the book that I read when I was probably about 19. It started that fire, and then I just started reading about leadership, and I got really passionate about it. I was able to identify what not so good leadership looks like and feels like, and I was able to identify really quickly the type of leader that I wanted to be. And that was a lot of the John Maxwell stuff that I was reading. Even Tony Robbins, right? Like you can lean into Tony Robbins and somebody can learn something out of anything that we have complete access to at our fingertips.
Oh, I love that answer. And it really does work well for somebody who is sitting at a company that maybe doesn't see leadership around them.
Yeah.
And is trying to find it.
You know what's so exciting about that is that if they don't have the leadership around them immediately, they can be the very first ones to show the company what leadership is supposed to be like, even though they may be in a position that isn't technically a leadership position, right? Again, that appointed thing. Yeah. Maybe it's their opportunity if they feel so, passionate about man, we got to get some leadership up in this place. Maybe they get to be the first one to really show people what leadership looks like and feels like.
And I will say too, is if you do have somebody that you do appreciate their leadership style or do you think that that's, what I want to be like, approach them, ask them to, spend time with you 30 minutes a week, every 2 weeks. If they say no, then it's probably somebody you don't really want to be like then. But most of the time, those good leaders, 95% of the time, they're going to say yes. They're going to say, yes, I'll absolutely do that.
Yeah.
No matter how busy they are. I mean, it's somebody like me. If they come and ask me, can you teach me, just listen to me what I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Fine. Let's find 30 minutes a week. We can talk through it. But yeah, absolutely.
Why? Why would you say yes is my question to you.
I feel that everybody should have an outlet of being able to talk to somebody about what they're dealing with and get a good opinion back, get somebody that has experiences and that has been through it to understand where they sit. And then two, I mean, I'm compassionate. If somebody is reaching out, then that was the first answer. It's going to be,
That was the first answer because you're a compassionate person and you want to help, you want to support, you want to, teach other people the way. Also, Jeff, you mentioned I wrote a book and it was the 17 Undeniable Traits of Leadership in Construction. I wrote it in construction to make it relatable to people in construction, but it's also relatable to there you have it! Ah, thank you.
Absolutely.
That book is very basic, like especially for new leaders and not so new. Like my grandfather read it, and he's 96. He ran his own companies. He's got lumber yards out in the Midwest, and he was like, this book talks specifically to what the challenges we faced in our company. And I wasn't in lumber, so I don't know what challenges he faced, but. So for the young leader and for the old, the more experienced leader, that book also teaches some very basic fundamentals of what you can latch onto. And there's even some practices in there. Like if you don't know how to, lead with compassion, there's some tips in there. Like, you can lead with compassion. So I would say, check out my book too.
Yeah, I wanted to do the whole Jay Leno thing, be like, so we got this book here. Let me tell you.
That's only for you people listening in or watching it on YouTube. So if you're not watching it on YouTube, you're missing that. Jacob held up the book. So for those of you who were in your car right now, you're just going to have to go look up Nicole and connect with her and find that book. And I imagine that you brought up a couple of things there, okay. Nicole, especially 17 habits. You mentioned habits a couple of times, and I remember this quote, and I don't know who said it, but it was excellence isn't something you achieve; it's a habit that you consistently do. Mm-hmm. Right? It's something that excellence is you consistently showing up, repeating those things, and doing it. And I also think with that comes the ability to stumble and then get back up and get going back on your way. Yeah. And I don't think that we've reached the point completely, especially in the world we're in right now, that we're accepting that and accepting that leadership can fall over. And in fact, I think when we do fall over, we try to protect ourselves too much. And there's something, I don't know if it's empathy. I don't know what it is that comes out when a leader goes, "Oh, I made a mistake."
Yeah. It's like humility.
Owns it. Yeah.
It's humility, right? And I think, as you guys know, it's success in any realm. If it's in your career of leadership, or if you're an athlete, it doesn't matter. But all of those things, the times that we trip and we fall and we skin our knees, all of those are such huge components of the journey and the success, right? Without those, it doesn't even really count. Like you've got to fall. And when you do fall, it's like, it's okay. Again, it's being the role model and teaching people what it's supposed to look like when you do mess up. It's not the end of the world. Nobody is going to die. Like you made a mistake and it's okay to own it. And I think those are the moments, especially that impact our teams the most, when they can see like, ooh, I was wrong. When I can admit that I maybe made a wrong decision that wasn't right for us or whatever, or just whatever. It could be the tiniest thing, but I think the humility behind that, and that's where the vulnerability starts to come in, right? When you have the humility, it's paired with the vulnerability, and then when your team sees you in those states, they know that you're a human being just like they are. And that's where the relationship starts to really blossom and really unfold. And that's where you start to get closer and closer. And then, it really, truly can be a beautiful thing. But one thing about tripping and falling and making mistakes is they're always watching. The team is always watching you as the leader. So when you do have those moments of like, I messed up, they're looking to see how you react. And I think the biggest thing is to always be mindful of like, how would, if they were the one making the mistake, how would I want them to react? I wouldn't want them to get all ugly about it and be like, I'm never wrong, right? Like I wouldn't want them to react that way. We own it, we take responsibility, and we move on and we do what's right. But I think to your point, it's being humble and not having that pride and ego that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I agree with you. And and you've been asking us questions, and Jacob, you made me think about something when you asked Nicole about, where do you go learn these things and how do you go do it? And I have the opportunity. There's a number of folks who probably are hopefully listening that I've had a chance to mentor over time, especially in really bad spots. Like, people don't necessarily reach out when they have great leadership and great things going on around them. It's like the help desk from an IT perspective. Nobody calls to say, "Hey, I logged in this morning and opened up my applications and they all work great." Like, thanks for answering. Click. Like, that's not how it goes,
right? Service line.
Yeah, it's not the customer thank you line.
Yeah.
It is the customer service line. But those are the people that are calling you out. And if you're out there and you're struggling in that situation right now, something I can offer up, and Nicole, I'll be interested to get your take on this, but this has always been mine, is just like, look, I went to school, and in school, everything in the book and everything that we studied, it was, a story, and it started at the beginning and at the end and gave us some sort of thing we were supposed to know. It's because it went well. There is no education better than you can pay for than watching people do things the wrong way, or go through things and do it incorrectly, or make those mistakes. Like, not even that your leader's a bad leader, that your leader's making mistakes, that these things are happening. These are opportunities to learn, to grow. And, it's great to go to a company and have everything go great and to, have happy customers and to grow the bottom line. But when the things aren't going well and sales aren't great and customers are unhappy or whatever, that's the moment that you can actually stretch yourself and learn from. But I'm wondering if what am I wrong on that one, or is there other things to that? Like, I don't necessarily tell people to jump out of the situation as much as I tell them to embrace it a little bit, learn as much as you can. Now, that's different than a toxic environment. I'm not talking about a toxic environment. I'm talking about an environment where things are just going off the rails. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. What are some of the, what's your take on, especially because I'm guaranteeing you've mentored a number of people and have a number of those folks. What kind of advice do you give them when they're in that situation?
I just like you said, we learn most in those situations, right? Or it's an opportunity we may not learn, but it is an opportunity for people to be learning in those types of situations. So I would say, what do you want the environment to look like? So if there's somebody, like you said, Jeff, that's in a not so great environment and, they call out for help, but I think as a leader in any position, as a leader, if you have a vision of what you want that environment to look like, you can start to create by baby stepping how that environment can actually look, right? So no pun intended, but you truly be the difference maker, right? I just talked about the Difference Maker book. But it's an opportunity for that individual to truly be the difference maker for the environment of their company and to have influence and impact on changing that culture, let's say, right? Let's just say it's just not working out. It may not be toxic, to your point, but it's an opportunity for them to be the difference maker. Go. I know you've got something to say.
No, that was it. That was, I was wondering if that's where you would go with it. And because it goes back to what Jacob said earlier about those people who don't have the leader, who are sitting there and who are looking around. It's to go find those things in and of yourself. And I like that you came back, and I'm going to read The Difference Maker because I have not read that one yet.
Yeah.
But it is Be the Difference Maker, and it's find the others like you in your organization and lead together and show, whether it's a win with one customer or two customers or in a process or whatever it is, get those wins together and lead by the example of doing it. And you hit on it. That's that rising tide, Jacob. That's the kinds of things too that, look, all of our situations aren't going to be great.
It's not always great. It is not.
No.
And it's mostly not great, right? It's mostly not great out there.
And the grass is not greener on the other side.
No. Yeah, that's turf.
Yeah. It's not real.
And we got all problems with turf too, I guess.
Right?
No, you're absolutely right, Jacob. The grass is not always greener on the other side. It's not always going to go well. And it's freaking easy to go into a great environment where the company's kicking butt and just get on the bus and go.
Yeah.
The true difference makers can go into environments where things aren't going well and they can be a part of positive change. And I think I've struggled with that over the years as well. Like, of being a part of that and seeing that and then taking part in the transformations. So I was excited for you to go there, Nicole. I wish we could go on forever. We can't go on forever. I want you to give, though, Nicole, especially since you're about a year into the construction side of things and you've seen a lot, maybe give people who are listening a little advice about, steps they can take in 2023 or things you're thinking about right now, and especially in the world of what we're about to come down the road on. And then where can they connect with you? Because I think people are going to want to connect.
Yeah, I think, I've listened to many economic forecasts and I've been part of those conversations. And I think what it comes down to is we're in a little bit of a world of uncertainty, right? So my biggest advice, and this is to myself as well, so I wouldn't do anything. I would only tell you something if I'm going to do it myself. But I think it's a super important time for us to stay consistent in our relationships. I think that maintaining the partnerships that we have in place today are going to be critical for a little bit of a bumpy road that we have ahead in our economy. And that, obviously impacts construction head on. So being consistent, we've talked about all of the relationship things. So I think that's the best advice that I can give. I don't have a crystal ball to be able to say what's going to happen. But I think proceed as you normally would. Don't hold back. Be consistent with what you're doing. Maintain the relationships that we already have. Everything is temporary, so we're going to come out on the other side of it, and we're going to say, remember when type of a thing, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my advice, and people can find me on LinkedIn, Nicole Sanchez. That's probably the best place. Everywhere else, I'm on Instagram. Maybe Facebook is still out there, but LinkedIn is my spot.
LinkedIn is all of our spots. Well, thank you so much for coming along. We've got to jump into the news, but Nicole's going to come along with us and we're going to put her into an uncomfortable space, being comfortable, which is what we love to do. But before we do, an advertisement. And I'm back with Robert Shear, VP of Strategy and Business Development for OpenSpace. There's a lot of reality capture out there, a lot of 360 products out there. What really sets OpenSpace apart?
From the start, we really focused on speed and simplicity. If you want your field teams to use stuff, it better be easy, it better be fast. And so our focus is 100% on making life easier for people to build stuff. All our advanced tech is wrapped in a really super simple experience. It just works the first time, every time. And it works at the speed of construction, which to us means getting things turned around in less than an hour, so that if you walk at 7 a.m, by 8 o'clock, you can share that with your team and you can coordinate work and kind of track issues.
Awesome. Well, so who is really the OpenSpace product focused at? Are you looking at trade contractors, general contractors, owners? Who's your real, users?
Yeah, it's really all of the above. I think we started focusing on GCs, and I'd say that's probably most of our users. But now we've got real strong adoption with trades. A lot of owners are writing it right into the spec for the project. With the GCs, it's a lot of capturing maybe every other day, once a week, to really provide that context for the team. Trades tend to use them a lot more actively. They're using them to track progress, track team productivity. And then owners, again, love to have that sort of oversight and visibility into the project. We've got 100,000 active users on the platform. We've got our users have captured over 10 billion square feet in over 70 countries. And more of our customers are moving from using OpenSpace on 1 or 2 projects to really using it across their whole project portfolio.
That's awesome. Where can they learn more about OpenSpace?
Yeah, I'd point them to 2 places. One is openspace.ai. Check it out, look around. If you want to learn more, there's request a demo buttons all over the place. Click that. The other one is we're going to be at a ton of trade shows and conferences, both sort of national ones like AU and Groundbreak, but also regional ones. So if you go to openspace.ai/events and see a calendar and, stop by and say hi.
And we're back. All right, Jacob, what do you have for the news this week?
Well, I got to thank Nicole there for the lead in on this one, because I have two articles that I'm going to kind of bring together at the same time here. Both construction dive. One's a deep dive, but um, one is a look at what the forecast was from December of 2022. And the other one is what 2023 is starting to look like. And the first one, recession watch, why the next one will be different. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me go back with the other one first. 2023 begins with positive momentum for construction. Talks a little bit about, hey, December looked pretty good actually compared to what we were seeing in October, November with all the rate hikes. We're actually seeing a little bit more momentum than we thought we would. Really good going into 23. Hopefully that keeps going. And then the other one is recession watch, why the next one will be different. And it's executive interviews from Skanska, DPR, Suffolk, and then a couple of others. But all of it talking about possible recession. It looks like it's happening, right? Stuff is happening. Tech layoffs are happening. What's really good is there's still quite a bit of construction going on. They're really seeing the money that's still there. Hopefully the rate hikes don't keep coming. But what we're looking for a lot of is going to be a consolidation. It's not going to be this full stop. And actually it compares a lot of it back to 2008, 2009, where we were with unemployment then when it happened. We're in a much better spot right now with unemployment than we were then. So if a recession does hit, we're not going to take the economic hit as bad. So it's really interesting. It's really nice. I like to see it. I agree with Nicole. Just, keep going through it. We're going to get through this. We're going to get on the other side. It does look like it's coming, but I really do think it's going to be a lot more of a consolidation, which if you even go back and look at those tech layoffs, all those tech layoffs are consolidations. There are extra projects. There are extra stuff that they were trying inside that aren't working out, and they're pretty much cutting fat. Mm-hmm. 20,000 employees to Google is less than like 3% of their company. So it was interesting where you say that, like, hey, if you work for a 100-man firm and you lay off 2 people, that's pretty much the same idea as what Google just did. So it's not as bad as what we see in the news. Hopefully that keeps going our way, and hopefully the rate hikes kind of really helped. The last thing I will say is they did mention there is still a supply chain issue. So that's going to be one of our biggest factors. Can we continue building off the supply chain if it's still going to be hard to get everything we need?
Yeah, you hit on a couple of things there, Jacob, and you know me, I'm I'm the eternal optimist when it comes to construction. Yep. When it comes to recessions, I think we have a couple of great things leading us into it. Right, we have the CHIPS Act, we have the infrastructure bill. The infrastructure bill was slow to get rolling, but it's really starting to roll now. I've always seen, and it's been strengthened over the last few years, that actually construction can be the cornerstone of the economy when it comes to resilience. Economic downturns and recessions are somewhat self-fulfilling prophecies. Like, our government needed to rate hike and raise a few things to slow growth down because things were out of whack. And sometimes you got to put some things back in whack, but that doesn't mean that it's going to crush us. And in fact, but what I think is the challenge, and I think especially given your second article, and if you look at some of the people and some of the firms that they represent, these firms are well diversified firms. Right? They have diverse portfolios. So when one sector grows and another shrinks, they're capable. And you also talked about consolidation. I think now's the time for firms that aren't diverse. They're going to look at and take the opportunity, hopefully, to acquire companies that will help them diversify, that will help them in that experience. If you're going into a new market, you have 2 opportunities. You can try to cover yourself and cover your risk and get in there on your own and use some of your own experiences, or quite frankly, acquire somebody that can do it with you and can teach you how to do it at scale. And those are opportunities. For me, if you're listening in, like, this is the tech side of me coming out, the people that win and create white space, it happens while everybody else is holding on and scared to move forward. Those who invest in a downturn are the ones who truly create white space that you're going to be chasing for a very long time. And I think that's bold leadership required. So, I think, Nicole, that speaks to you and your world a little bit. You're shaking your head. I feel like you got something to talk about there.
No, I am just agreeing with you 100%. And I love that you said bold, because that was one of the things that we had talked about that I just kept thinking it takes boldness and courageous people, right? Just agreeing with you. That's it.
The courage is huge. The boldness is huge. And understanding that, things do happen, right? Things do happen, but we can and will persevere. And also, by the way, everybody you talk to, everybody you listen to, it's like weather forecast, right? Like nobody knows what the heck's going to happen anyway.
I know.
So be bullish, get out there, and I think really, really watch for it. So great news today, Jacob. I'm going to jump into one that's on everybody's tongue and ideas right now, and that's that Chat GPT. So we're going to jump into this whole open AI with pilots underway, tries to help organizations identify AI generated text. This came from Travis Voss. I got to give him cred for that one. He shared it with me. But the interesting thing was, I actually got an email from my son's school at the same time, basically talking about using ChatGPT to do your homework for you, right? And what this article talks about is there are pilots underway for us to figure out and for companies to figure out when AI has been utilized to generate certain texts. You might have seen in the news recently, it's been used a few times. It earned a B in constitutional law. This is ChatGPT, by the way, and it earned a B- in employee benefits, a C- in taxation, and a C- in torts. So it's not exactly the greatest student on the planet, but darn is that getting close. The interesting thing was there's a big gap, right? When you're talking about regurgitation of things, ChatGPT does really well, and AI in general does really well with that. But the problem is when it is wrong, it's really wrong. So there's no I'm partially wrong. It's like the algorithm just screwed it up and it's gone. So, but detecting AI copy, I've said this for a while. I think the monetization of this process, Microsoft put $10 billion into ChatGPT, right? $28 billion valuation. Somebody want to get their money back eventually, right? So this all free creating rap songs and fun stuff. Eventually that's going to cost people money. And then all of a sudden it's going to go a little different. However, it's like any other technology. And this is the thing. I know, Nicole, you're not a technologist, but people are like, oh, it's going to replace me. We've been hearing that from the dawn of time, that we were going to manufacture and then that was going to get rid of people. And we always need people. We need people that leverage technology. We need leaders that understand how it can help our businesses. So I'm just kind of interested, if are you worried about AI, or are you just, sitting back and wondering what's going to happen? Where's your head at?
I think AI is great. I think, we were talking about this a little bit before, and from a leadership content perspective, anybody that makes any content leverages some type of AI if they know what's going on in the world, because that's where we're at. So I think embrace it. Human beings will never be replaced. It just will never happen. Where maybe there's going to be some job responsibilities that do require more robotic type of, robots being, hanging out over here. But human beings will never be replaced. And I think embrace the AI. It can only enhance anything that we've got going on. It just enhances it. We're never going away. So bring it on.
Jacob, what do you think?
I'm fucking stoked. That is what I am. Sorry, Jeff and the editing team, but this is awesome. And I will tell you what, my favorite thing in the world is that it's killing our education system. It is absolutely shaking it up that now they can't say, go write a paper and go read this book and write a paper. Our education system is so flawed right now. This is very political. We can get way into it. But the one thing I don't like...
emails?
Yeah, right. but we don't problem solve. We memorize and repeat. And that is horrible. We do not teach problem solving in schools. Well, if we get rid of all this memorize and repeat, we can start teaching better things. We can start teaching them how to solve problems, how to be empathetic, how to do stuff. And that's where I'm hoping this goes. I'm hoping it disrupts what we do in education to really start thinking, all right, 7th grade, they told me I'd never be walking around with a calculator in my pocket. I had to learn algebra. Well, I'm so glad algebra helps me so much every day, but I still have a calculator in my pocket and it's amazing. So let's evolve as a whole world, as a group of people, and actually start leveraging this, right? Use it the right way. There's so much with it. I play around with ChatGPT every day. I have written my own BIM rap song. It's absolutely amazing. And
that BIM rap's going to be expensive down the road, buddy.
I know, right? The worst thing is I'm going to copyright it, and then it's going to be owned by ChatGPT in 5 years. Like, no, correct. We wrote that. We have it.
Okay, hold on. Do you actually rap it?
No. No.
Come on.
Not on live air.
No, but I mean, do you? Like in your car driving, are you rapping all this stuff out?
Yeah, B to the I to the M. Come on.
That's it right there. That's his whole rap. That's his whole rap song right there. That's all he's got. No, I'm going to pull you guys back in off the rails.
Sorry.
Let's get you off those rails. Jacob, I agree with you, though. I tell my son this all the time, and I tell other people all the time. I spend most of my life when people come out of school telling them everything that you learned in school is wrong. I want the ones who want to cheat off of each other. And when I say that, I don't mean I want you to look at their answer and just copy it down. I want you to read it and decide if they're right, because the two of you together are far better than one of you alone regurgitating something to me. I want you to think, and we break that up, and we agree that that system is broken. Although I'm going to tell you, I'm seeing a lot of change around that when it comes to STEM and it comes to the other ways. So there are certain fundamentals that still we haven't adapted to how that we teach those. But I'm seeing fantastic educators out there that are doing that. So that's my take right there. And finally, I'm going to do one that we may have done already, because I'll be honest, I'm losing my mind right now, but why IPD is not the answer to innovation in construction, by the one and only James Peace. I met with James recently. He warned me this was coming. It's fantastic, especially given this is the Lean IPD blog, and he's telling you that IPD is not the answer to innovation in construction. And you know, James's goal, he's an owner and works in that space, but does a lot of consulting around the changes. And yes, IPD challenges us to think differently, to think about the experience, you know, to go to Pay the Construction Progress Coalition. What's in it for me? You know, that show me how I'm measured and I'll show you how I act. And I'm sure I got that wrong. It's a different way, but at least that's how I say it every time. And that's what IPD is trying to do contractually. But honestly, some of the things that we're trying to do in construction are actually causing projects to take longer and to be more expensive, because we've iterated a process, we've iterated a way, but it takes time to get to that. It takes time to disrupt and change. And it's literally, we change the contract structure, but we try to do things the way we used to do them, and you can't do that anymore. Right. And that's one of the most powerful things here. And then I think the real challenging thing is why design and construction firms hinder innovation. And the reason I think IPD will never be the solution for innovation is that there are still many design and construction firms that have a business model based on billing hours to a project and marking up the cost of that project. And that drops me into the commoditization of construction conversation that I just made everybody driving in their cars shiver if they're on the commoditized side. But guess what? Each one of us here today is wearing commoditized apparel, right? I have my sweatshirt on. You've got, Jacob, your polo on. I'm going to tell you right now that the cost of making that has gone down over the years, but did what you spend on it go down?
Nope.
Why? Because that's the model. That's what I'm willing to pay for. That's the commodity and what the commodity is worth. It's my job to make that cheaper to produce it at scale so that I can make money. And I think that's a challenge for the industry to go through the commoditization portal and realize that that does not define us as industry professionals and as you know, producers of the mechanicals, the electricals, the plumbers, those people of the world. It's just giving you an opportunity to deliver things differently and drive your own costs down. But you got to be a commodity on the other side. And designers and constructors need to know how to consume that commodity. That's my take.
Yeah. Well, first, I thought you were actually going to name the brand of clothing that Nicole had on too, as you went through all this. Like, I was getting impressed, Jeff. You kind of like, you're like, we're all wearing something commoditized.
Jacob,
I can't.
We match. So if our arms are close enough to each other, like it just looks like, I don't know if you're next to me on your end, but we match. Like we didn't even call each other this morning.
I know. No, you guys didn't give me the call. Like I wore black. Like, come on.
You
guys, I didn't know this was the blue show.
You were supposed to already be connected. I mean, we had all the other things handled, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but I love it. I'm obviously a huge fan of IPD. I want there to be there, but I think there was a good point in it. And I think this kind of is the underlying thing is the incentives need to change. Mm-hmm. There's no incentive to be innovative. In especially working for a company like Via Technic, we are a innovation company. We basically go solve problems. So we look at everything instead of cost plus as value minus. Mm-hmm. If you have a project you're only billing hours to, and you have to bill a certain amount of hours, it hurts you to be innovative and be more efficient, which is ridiculous. Like, don't you want to end up getting a second project and having that person actually do work on both projects? Like, it's such an old school way, and it's always going to keep, it's just going to keep going this way. A lot of government contracts are this way. It's tough. And I don't know the day that we can finally get something like IPD. It doesn't have to be contractual. We all don't have to be in holding hands together, but it's got to be incentivized where if this is more successful, we get paid more.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to wrap this and bring this all the way back around to where we started, because Nicole started it here when you talked about happy customers. And, I think about Simon Sinek, and I think about why, and I think about things like the Kodak experience where, Kodak doesn't exist anymore. And had they understood what they did as an organization, which was capture the memories of their clients, then they wouldn't have been in the business of creating film, which is why they went out of business. Mm-hmm. I think if we as an industry realize that we are in the business of producing the built environment and the world around us and stop thinking about it as the way that we go about doing it today, putting work in place, stick building things, doing that. And we think that it is our job and our industry's job to shape the world around us and shape the experiences that the people have in the built environment, and not how we do it, but why we do it, then we have an absolute opportunity to do things completely differently and lead this industry into what I think will be its next incantation. And that will be where we do look at it differently, right? We don't look at just billable hours. We don't look at burning those things down. We look at building and look at how and why we can do that differently. Then we can do something different. And that's my take on it. So hopefully that wrapped the whole show up. I want to thank Jacob. Man, I am so happy that you came on today and brought Nicole with you, because this was awesome.
This was fantastic. Love this one. Thank you, Nicole.
Oh, thank you guys so much. It was such a pleasure. Couldn't even say pleasure. It's the Celsius kicking in.
It's the Celsius, man.
It's time to go.
It's time to go. That Celsius is kicking in. I got to go run around the block or do something to burn off that energy. Maybe jump on the Peloton, since we had that discussion too as well, Nicole. Nick, I want to say thank you, Nicole, for coming on the show. I hope to see you again in the future. And I hope the collaboration, this is just the beginning.
Absolutely. Thanks, you guys.
And thank you all for tuning in today to geek out for our interview with Nicole Sanchez. To read all our news stories and to listen to the show, visit thecontechcrew.com or stop by youtube.com/@thecontechcrew. and subscribe to get all our recent updates and videos. Then you can see that wonderful book Nicole had. This is the ConTech crew signing out. Until next time, enjoy the ride and geek out.